This lesson is to look at the two standard ways to solve this problem where you're given the sine of an angle, not the angle itself, but the sine of the angle, what quadrant that angle's terminal side lands in, and then asked to find the exact values of all the other trig functions. So we're supposed to find the exact values of all 6 trig functions evaluated at theta. Here, so I shouldn't say at with at theta. Okay, so we already know sine, and my feeling is go for cosine, and then the rest of them you use the reciprocal identities and the quotient identities for. That's sort of my take on that. And the first way I'm going to do it is kind of directly. We know from the Pythagorean identity that sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta equals 1. And we already have sine squared. We already have sine, and we can square it. And so let's see, 4/5 squared, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5 is 25. I can solve this for cosine squared, and 1, because I'm going to move the 16 25ths over, I'm going to call 25 over 25. So that my next step is to subtract 16 25ths from both sides. And so let's see, I've got, if I go back up here, I've got that cosine squared equals, let's say, 25 minus 16, that looks like 9 25ths. And so taking the square root of both sides, cosine theta is 3/5. But be careful, that's just, it's going to really be plus or minus, right? And so I have to look at, okay, theta's in quadrant 2. It's either the positive or the negative. Let me look at that. So here's what we've got. So sine theta is 4/5. Cosine theta is either plus or minus 3/5, and I'm in quadrant 2. So when I draw that, in quadrant 2, let's see, the sine is 4/5, that's about 0.8, and the cosine is 3/5. Okay, wait a minute, it's got to be negative 3/5, so I'm in the second quadrant, so this is no longer a question. It's got to be negative 3/5. Okay, cool. So I've got sine, I've got cosine. Tangent theta is just sine over cosine, which is sine times the reciprocal. Get rid of the 5's, and we've got negative 4/3. Cotangent is just the reciprocal of that, the reciprocal of tangent. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, and finally secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So that's one way to get all of them. Just to back up, I said, all right, I'm on a unit circle. Sine squared plus cosine squared is 1. I'll square that fraction, move it over, take the square root, and yes, I cooked these up so that the square root was nice. Figure out whether it's plus or minus based on what quadrant you're in. Since we're in quadrant 2, the cosine was negative. And then use the identities to get the other trig values, the tangent, cotangent, cosecant, and secant. So I'm going to do another example in another video in which I look at another way to go about this.